Welcome to the Change of Him podcast. This is Gerard Uselli here. We are on episode 25, and let me say, the change just keeps growing one guest at a time, and it's been such an exciting process since day one. This person I have here today is an incredible director, filmmaker, producer, and has so much perspective within the film industry. And let me introduce to you Asif Akbar. Asif, how are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me on. This should be fun.
Absolutely. Glad to have fun with you on this one. And a fun question that I like to ask a lot of my guests who come on the show is what your childhood was like growing up.
Oh man, my childhood was definitely something that stuck with me even now that I'm an adult and father myself. It sometimes, I still feel like, I can think like the kid self, when I was like back when I was like 3, 4 years old, as far back as I can remember, when my mind was growing. I still can remember back to those thoughts of what I used to think about and the questions I used to have. I was a very curious kid. And that's part of what made me want to become a filmmaker, that curiosity of exploring, stories and the world and people. So when I was a kid, I mean, for me, everything was make believe, like fun and games, and I love to play with friends and like the typical games kids play, and that kind of evolved with me wanting to become a filmmaker. And part of what we do as filmmakers or actors is kind of play, but kind of utilizing real life stories to do so. So it's interesting how the mind develops, from your childhood to adulthood. So I feel like there's always that part of, that child me inside of me.
Also in that regard, like let's say within you and your group of friends, were you kind of more of the lead of creating ideas? Did you try to take more initiative when you were getting older? Like what was kind of your role within like your select group of friends?
Yes, actually, it's interesting. I used to, go on and make up games and adventures and activities to do amongst my friends. And sometimes, like, I would be the one just going around the neighborhood, knocking on everyone's doors, and then, get this group of 5, 6 kids together, and then we'd ride off into the woods. And I mean, it's really the stuff like we watched growing up, like movies like Sandlot, where you have the group of kids, and then, you got one or two of the kids that are kind of like the leader of the pack in a way, so there were definitely like moments where like I had to take charge. And for me, like I used to always be creative in everything I did. Like even as a kid, I was making little home movies with my friends with like a handy camera, and I figured out how to do tape to tape editing to put it together and make something out of it. So for me, everything kind of had a purpose. Even when we played games, whether it's cops or robbers, we capture the flag or whatever it was, we used to like do a lot of mock wrestling. We were wrestling fans and act like we were WWF wrestlers, but there was always like an end goal to it. It wasn't just all fun and games. It had to have a purpose. So that's how I kind of look at everything. Even when I was growing up and going to film school, to me, going to film school was not just going to school. It was like going to work, making my movies at a studio, using the resources, of editing and the equipment and the people that were around me. So that's just how I approach everything in life right now.
When was the first time, like when you were starting to do your film, as far as especially you as a kid doing tape to tape editing, when was the first time you felt like you were good at it?
When I first was able to watch my creation for the first time, beginning to end. Um, there were a few films that I attempted to make when I was under like 10, 11 years old. I started around 7, I believe, with actually recording scenes and trying to make little short films. But I could never really see them through. Like we would shoot them with my friends, but then part of my friends would not take it seriously. To them, it'd be fun and games, and then we'd like shoot half of it, and then it'd be like an unfinished little piece, and that would be very frustrating to me. So like every few months, I'd try to make a new little short film, and then when I was about 11 years old, I started this little short, and it took me 7 months to finish it. We filmed it like on the weekends or after school with a bunch of my friends, and we were barely in the 6th or 7th grade, I believe, and it took 7 months, and I went from the 6th grade. It was the 6th grade to the 7th grade when I finally finished it, and then I showed it to my friends and family and peers, and people were taken back by it. Like, wow, you're 11 years old and now you have a whole 45 to 50-minute long movie that had a beginning, middle, and end, and it flowed like it. It was a bunch of kids, acting and doing everything, but we took it seriously, and it actually was something that was watchable. So at that moment, I knew, okay, I created something here that people are watching and enjoying and getting to see my story. And that's when like the real bug hit me. And before that, I used to want to be an actor, and I was. I was doing a lot of kids theater work and acting, and later that helped me also develop the concept of what it means to be a director and a filmmaker, and to be able to tell your own stories by doing each of the work to make it come together.
Yes, and also in that regard, so as you know, film has so many moving pieces to it, and I'm sure going through the ropes of every project, it is just an understatement for what you can and cannot tolerate at the same time. So my question to you is, what's one aspect about the film industry that you feel like you have to push yourself to keep doing more of?
Well, yeah, and you're right. I mean, there's so many elements. I always say that film is the most collaborative art form. It's like every little piece, an element, and people, they come together and matter to collaborate to make this one art. But for me, being able to work with all the different people and the different personalities from project to project. Sometimes you work with 100 people, 150 people, or even if it's smaller film, 30, 40, 50 people. But a part of that is very fascinating, and what I love about the job. And then sometimes it can be challenging too if you don't have the same team of people always working. That's why I do normally work with a lot of the same people that I've worked in the past, and I have like my core group of team and people. But then every project, there's always a new batch of whether actors or producers or someone, where you have to kind of resync up with certain people to be able to execute a vision that you all share. So to me, as fun and great as it can be collaborating with people, a lot of times it can also be challenging, and so many different personalities and backgrounds coming together and clashing and working together. That's something that I believe as a filmmaker, you need to get used to. I used to be very introvert when I was younger. As I grew older throughout my teenage years, and now I've become very extrovert because it was, part of the job. You have to be a people person, and be able to get along with people and work with people and collaborate. So that's really cool.
Do you think listening is one of the more difficult things to do, especially when you're trying to make a film. Like, I know people always say we always got to be better listeners and things of that sort, but in those moments, I'm sure you were probably pushed to your ropes on certain things. So, like, for you, what's it kind of like to really like take the step back and listen to other people in the environment?
No, listening is definitely one of the most important things. Even like for actors, they say, um, being an actor is also reacting. Acting is reacting with your partners in the scenes or the moments, that's going on. And same thing with being a director and a filmmaker, and even every department in the film crew. You have to be able to listen and pay attention to what's going on, and in the moment you have to know how to react in the moment from listening to what's going on or seeing what's going on, um, and you have to give room to other people to be able to express their views and their thoughts as much as they can. The more you listen, the more you can use what others are saying as a tool to do your job that you need to. So it's one of the most important things. I mean, communication is key in what we do.
Also, moving forward a little bit, and your IMDb speaks for itself, I wanted to talk about a specific project called the Commando. Congratulations on making that happen. It's an incredible
Well,
piece of
thank you
work
so much.
that I'm sure a lot of us are working forward to. And the question I have for you is, how'd that all come about? Like, what was kind of like the process of getting that together and your initial thoughts on making it happen?
The Commando is actually one of the films that came together pretty quickly during the pandemic. There's all these projects that we want to do and we work on, and there's a lot that are dream projects, passion projects, or projects that just come up in the lineup of films that you have, that all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it gets a green light. Now, whether that's because of the actors you have attached, or it's just that kind of a script that, the buyers or the distributors are just coincidentally looking for at the time. So there's many different factors that are involved in green lighting a film. In the case of the Commando, it was a script that, that my friends and I just kind of developed, and we had on our shelves, thinking, okay, this was a cool idea and a script, and it could be done pretty well. We'll keep it in the back burner and see when we could get it made. It wasn't like a priority project, like,
Yeah.
okay, this is what we want to make right now. It was just something to have, because one thing I've learned, and it's a very common thing, everyone will tell you, is you have to always be ready for the next film or with the next project. If you have one film you're working on and a script, you got to make sure you have 2-3 other scripts, or even more, several, in the toolbox waiting, because you never know what might come up that people might need. So it was just one of those scripts, and I was working on some other projects, and with the pandemic, obviously things were reshuffling, and projects were moving around. And all of a sudden, one day, a producer came to me and said, hey, we need this certain type of a film. So we went to our vault, and I talked to my other partners that own the script. And I said, let's submit this, see, if they want it. So we submitted it to the first group of producers that were interested in it initially. They read it, and they said, it's good, but it's not quite exactly what we're looking for. Can you change some things? So we went back and forth, did new drafts, I think 2 more, and it wasn't for them. So it just didn't connect. So we said, okay, that's fine. So they told us what they were looking for, and I started writing, this new script for, what they need. And then in the meantime, my other friend, who's also a producer, Al, on the film, he had interest from another group of producers that were looking for a film similar to it. So he went ahead and submitted the Commando to them. and they ended up liking it. So in the meantime, I was writing this new script for the original group that wanted the movie. And then now the second group of people came in and they said, we want to do this. So then the Commando ended up getting green light by the second group of producers. And a part of it was that we also had the actors. We had Michael Jai White on board. He had liked the script originally. And the name, the Commando, that just, it sounds like a great action movie, right? But it's actually not a full-on action film. It is an action film, but it's also a psychological, thriller, drama, and action. It deals a lot more with the characters in depth than your typical action film, but it is a Michael Jai White film, and Mickey Rourke is the villain in it. And we have a great ensemble supporting cast with Cowboy Cerrone, Jeff Fahey, Brendan Fair. We shot it on location in New Mexico. And it all came together very fast. Within, I think, 2 months of the script getting greenlit, we were on the ground shooting the film. And right now it's in post-production. It should be coming out later this year.
So in that regard too, it's a really cool and interesting way to have both worlds parallel between Michael Jai White and Mickey Rourke. What was it like to have those synergies together?
It was actually really a good experience for all of us. We didn't know what to expect, because they were both completely two different personalities. But when they get in the room, they're like old pals, and we all got along very well. And the shooting environment was just fun. Our set was fun. We all, some of us, worked for the first time together. Some of us have been working together, but it all felt like we were a comfortable group of, friends and family. So, that was, part of what made it so enjoyable. We had fun, and there were so many talents around where, like, an actor like Mickey Rourke, you just got to let him do what he's best at. Let him do his thing. Let him be Mickey Rourke, the actor, and you can get some gold out of him that's not even written on page, And then same thing like with Michael Jai White. He has a factor with action and expertise in his own right that you have to kind of let him utilize as his tools. But at the same time, in this film, I was trying to showcase him in a different way than most people, are used to seeing him in action films. He's just that fighter or, shoot 'em up kind of a guy, rough and tough. But in this film, his character is very vulnerable. He's a DEA agent that's suffering from PTSD because of a mistake he made on a mission. And now, he has to fight the demons within himself, and at the same time, fight the bad guys to protect his home and his family. So it's a very interesting combination with the psychological trauma that the character is going through, and then the action. And so there's a lot of dramatic moments. It's a thriller. It was overall a very fun project, and all the actors enjoyed it. And we shot it in a very record speed time. We were out there, we had 11 principal shooting days and out there for like 3 weeks, and just went through it really well.
So I've done a few film sets myself, and it is very interesting when you prioritize and you kind of make things, especially on our end. We were doing like 12-hour film days, and it is very cool when you set yourself that goal at 12 hours, what you're able to achieve beforehand. To do something in 10 hours rather than 12, you feel like you just climbed a mountain.
Right. No, exactly. And sometimes, there are days where we would go over 12 hours.
Yeah.
And obviously, those are some heavier days, but you balance it out. And, at an average, you get to shoot for about, 8 hours, altogether, even if you have long 16-hour days. And for me, one of the key things with my style of directing is I shoot to edit. And I've worked as an editor and a cinematographer before earlier on in my career as well, and along with directing. So I understand what we need and don't need in the editing room. And, I still cover myself with enough coverage and footage to be able to play around with it. But I put the whole thing together in my head on set as I'm shooting. So that helps a lot with the speed and just not wasting much time. And then on this particular one, most times I like shooting multicam. On this one, we were shooting 3, 4 cameras at a time, sometimes with 2 units even, so it was just a whole new formula that's kind of becoming the norm now with more and more productions, especially because of the pandemic and COVID, with new rules and regulations. We just have to adapt into new styles and formulas of filmmaking, which not it's definitely challenging. It's a lot more challenging, but at the same time, you can push boundaries to really be able to achieve something you thought wasn't possible. And sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle that way.
That's very true. And to kind of bring it back a little bit in your personal life, I firstly want to congratulate you for being a new father. That is incredible.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And in that regard, I wanted to ask kind of like the personal versus professional realm of this. Do you feel like being a father nowadays impacts the way that you create films?
Absolutely. I would say, yeah, most definitely. As a filmmaker, we use a lot of our own personal life experiences and emotions and events to be able to recreate and feel for what we're making with the characters and the storylines that we tell. And I feel like being a father has definitely matured me, to another level of understanding life and story and characters. And I do definitely see a lot of things in a different perspective. Like I said, it matures you very fast, and it makes you see things differently. And it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's one of the best things and best feelings I've had, as I'm sure most parents can share. But it happened fast. I mean, 2020 was just a wild year. I had my firstborn baby, and with the pandemic and everything, I've been blessed to be able to still be, making movies, and hopefully I won't be slowing down anytime soon.
Absolutely. And my final question for you is, what is the biggest change you want to see for yourself this year?
This year, 2021, definitely, it already started off with it being pretty exciting. I have a few projects already in the pipeline, but my goal is to definitely make bigger and better projects as I, evolve as a filmmaker. From project to project, I try to always learn something new every day and working on a new project. And I really do take a lot of new life lessons in general from every new project. So that journey that I take from beginning to end and delivering a project is exciting, because I don't really know what's in store for me. I don't know what I'm going to end up learning or creating and achieving. So it's pretty exciting to start every new film journey. And right now I'm about to start another film. And I just hope, it makes me a better filmmaker, person, father, and just, can't wait to show what I have coming next to the audience.
Absolutely. Well, that concludes episode 25 for the Change Within podcast. For those who want to follow us, please check us out: Anchor, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you so much for being on our podcast today, and have a great rest of your weekend.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.